All right. Hey, ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am here with the incomparable Jenny Baird. So, Jenny is a life and mindset coach who specializes in communication and performance. And so she has very graciously agreed to jump on with me just for a little bit. We'll just keep this quick, informal, but she wanted to give us some tips and tricks. And Jenny, I'll just pass it over to you and let you go ahead and give yourself a more formal introduction there, whatever you want to say, and we'll just jump into it.
Thanks so much, Olivia. Hey, ladies, I'm Jenny. Like she said, I am so passionate about life and mindset coaching and helping women like you, women like myself, to just step into your power and be more confident in the way that you use your voice, finding your physical voice, and also finding your internal message and clarifying your message so that you can communicate anywhere you want to, whether it's in your relationships or pitching for business or public speaking. My work is to help you clarify your message and communicate with calm, confident clarity. So I'm so excited to be here with you and just to share a little bit um, about presenting, about communicating.
I love what you just said, but I'm taking notes already. you
That's
don't, you
great.
just started, I'm already taking notes, but I love what you said already about the calm, confidence, clarity. Like there's some very good aspects that I would love to have whenever I'm public speaking, lives on social media like this, whatever. Or even just talking internally with, friends and family. Want to
Yeah,
make sure I can approach my toddler in a calm, confident, and clear manner.
right.
So
Because you're the adult, right?
exactly, need to remember that. Um,
Yeah,
all
for
right,
sure.
I love it. Let's jump in. Tell us some tips.
Sounds good. Sure. So I think one of the things that I have learned through being coached myself, and then things that I've been helping my clients with, is kind of almost going all the way back to the identity piece. Are we solid and clear in our identity and in our worthiness? I think a lot of what happens when we get on a stage, when we get in front of investors, in our relationships, I think some of the pieces that can stop us the most are, do I really belong here? Am I really worthy? And so I think getting solid on that is your first thing. So if you have questions about your worthiness, if you struggle with imposter syndrome, which most of us do, right? I think finding out what things can bring you down from those levels of anxiety, like I can stand on my own 2 feet. I know who I am. I know what I'm here to do. And really being confident in your identity is kind of number one. That's a big thing. And then the other thing I really help people do is find out, what are your values? What are your core values for yourself? What are your core values for your business? Because if you can understand those things and then you can communicate out of those things, it kind of gets rid of a lot of the extra distractions that might come in and say, but this person expects me to be this. What if these people expect this? What if this audience is hoping for this from me and I can't deliver? If you can kind of get rid of those voices and understand, this is what I'm about, this is what my business is about, and these are the things I'm going to communicate. I actually had one potential client that I was just chatting with, and she was really nervous because she's in the bookstore space, and she was talking about, like, I don't have these degrees in these levels, and I do kind of a different thing. I don't know all the Shakespeare and all of the literature knowledge. I just love books, and I'm like creating this space for people. And she was having anxiety about, how do I communicate? How do I set boundaries? And we were able to talk through and say, maybe the fact that you don't have all the PhDs, and maybe the fact that you are just a book lover that's kind of running this co-op bookstore, maybe that is your strength. And maybe you start to communicate from that instead of saying, how do I communicate with all these people in a way that's not authentic to me? Right? So finding that authenticity, what your authentic strengths are, and communicating out of your strengths rather than worrying about your weaknesses, is a huge part of feeling that confidence and being calm and grounded as you go to kind of communicate in these spaces. So I would say number one is, are you solid on your worthiness? And then number two, do you have your values really set out for your life, for yourself? and for your business. So even with this gal with the bookstore we talked about, she said, I think one of my values is sustainability because my business has to keep running. And so I feel like I can't say no to anything. So we talked about maybe sustainability is actually not a value. It's just like a need. Every business needs sustainability, right?
Mhm.
So maybe instead of like thinking of sustainability as a value, maybe your real values are creating space, bringing people together. So we talked about what are your values versus you just got to have sustainability to survive, right? So kind of getting those things in place and recognizing what are just kind of like core things that you got to do, but what are your actual values? So for me, some of my values are chase the wild, chase the wonder, stay wild, and die empty. And I have things under each of those values that are belonging, connectedness, freedom, authenticity. Die empty is all about creativity. So I have to put my voice and my art out into the world and not die with those things inside of me.
Mhm.
So those things direct both my life and my business. And if I can bring myself back to those things, am I communicating authentically? Am I being free, or am I saying what people want me to hear? Those kinds of things. So those are the worthiness and kind of values pieces that I would say are number one. Do you have any thoughts as I bring those things up? What are your thoughts as I say talk about that?
No, I mean, everything you're saying makes absolute complete sense. I love it. I think that authenticity piece is, I mean, that in the mindset, the self-worth, being confident in yourself is the first thing I actually go to working with anybody, when we start prepping their marketing program and their marketing outreach. We go to that stuff first, and they're like, well, no, I don't want to do that. I want to learn how to do Facebook ads, or I want my website to convert better. But the reality is all of that, your marketing voice is a direct reflection on how you are feeling about yourself and how confident you are in your offer. And if you are not confident in yourself, confident in your offer, then you're not being authentic in your marketing voice. And therefore your audience is going to feel that. And that's going to dissuade a lot of sales. So I think it all ties together beautifully. I love those 2 points so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. And to your point, if you don't, like you said, it dissuades from sales because if you're not communicating what you really are and who you
Mhm.
really are, you're not finding the people that actually need what you have and that want what you have. I think that's a big fear that I've had to work through. Am I posting too much or saying too much about my business or this or that? And I finally had to realize the people that are going to be annoyed by me posting about my life mission, because my business as a life coach is my life mission, those people aren't my audience. And if I silence myself because of those people, then the people that do need me never find me
Mhm.
because I'm not being loud about what I do and how I can help, right? Because
Right,
what
right.
we're doing is we're helping people. And so we have to be bold about that so they can find us. That's my thoughts on that. But
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing, right? That's like social media, like
It all comes down in my mind to shifting that focus from me, myself, what am I sounding like, to
yes,
my audience, what do they need to hear, how can I help them, what
right.
are they looking to hear at this moment.
Exactly.
And um, coming at it from the perspective of trying to help them and trying to serve them, and from a
Yeah.
place of love, instead of being like, oh no, like what am I sounding like, and
Right.
how can I reach everybody all at once, because reality is when we try to please everyone, we
You
please no
please no one.
one. Yeah,
And
very
you
true.
abandon yourself to some
Yes,
respect, right?
yes,
And so
absolutely.
back to our point, the most important part of staying grounded and staying confident is not abandoning yourself.
Yeah.
One of the things, so I got my start as a music coach, and one of the things I did during the pandemic when everything went away was start Rockstar Camp, an online performance camp for kids, and it was just to learn just some basics about music, but mostly performance and confidence. And one of our sessions, we talked about where do you take your cue from? When you're in a performance setting, when you're starting to have nerves, where do you take your cue from? And so I asked all the kids, like, what's your most nervous thing about getting on stage? And pretty much without fail, every kid was like, with the exception of a couple of wonderful freaks who were like, I love being on stage, right? Most of the kids were like, I'm nervous about making a mistake and if people are going to laugh at me and what people are going to think. And if we're honest, we're not that different, right? The things that cause us anxiety, what if I blow it? What if I make a mistake? What if I sound like an idiot? Whatever it is. And so one of the things that we talked about in Rockstar Camp was, let's like rewind a little bit from that mindset of like, what happens if this happens, right? What if I make a mistake? What if people laugh at me? Something that I've learned from my years as a musician, as a singer in public speaking settings, is that most of the time you can't get a true read on your audience. So taking your cue from your audience can be a very dangerous thing. I led worship for a long time in big crowds of people, and I'm in Northeast Ohio, and in Northeast Ohio, a lot of church culture is not super exuberant, right? So you're leading worship on stage, you're singing, you're being exuberant, and everyone's in the audience standing like this. And I had to learn very quickly, like, I can't take my cue from my audience because if I do, I will lose all of my confidence. Because what their face is telling me right now is, I don't want to be here. I don't want you to be up there. I don't blah, 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 right? And so taking your cue from your audience, whether you're leading worship or singing or public speaking or pitching, can be a dangerous thing because you don't actually know what's going on inside of someone's head. So if you're letting someone's lack of reaction or a reaction that you didn't expect to derail you, that can be a very dangerous thing, right? Because you don't actually know what they're thinking. And so what I do in those situations is sometimes I'll do mentor exercises. One time I was performing and everybody was talking, nobody was listening, and I was like, why am I on the stage right now? Like, I should just like pack it up and go home. And instead I was like, you know what? I'm a performer. I love singing. I love the songs that I'm singing. I'm going to pretend like I'm Taylor Swift in a huge stadium and everyone is singing along.
Yeah.
So I just like closed my eyes and sang my heart out. And it was ended up being a great experience because I didn't let all those voices saying, they don't want you here, they're not listening, blah, 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 right? And on my way back to my seat, a bunch of people are like, you were awesome, that was so good, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, they were listening. So that, so yeah, like you have to understand that we have to understand as communicators to take our cue from ourselves. And again, that goes back to having that solid identity, having those solid core values, and clarifying your message so that you can be confident that you are communicating what you came to communicate, no matter what anybody's reaction or lack of reaction is. So it's kind of that little mindset shift of, in some ways you can't help reading the room, but as you're reading the room, what are you doing with the reactions or lack of reactions that you're seeing? Are you allowing it to derail that confidence, or are you recalibrating to continue your message? So that's been one of the biggest things in my life and in my coaching that I've helped people to do. Like, let's ground with yourself instead of with someone else. Bringing your power is here, it's not out there. Like giving someone else the power to like decide your trajectory of communication is a dangerous thing. So
yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. And it's something that does kind of seem a little counterintuitive because we're all working for our audiences. And so of course we want their reactions. But as you said, it does come back to be good with yourself and engaging the reaction of others. That's where that imposter syndrome and any low self-esteem, anything like that can really, really skew your perspective a little bit, because you can take silence and turn that into something really, really negative or bad, when that might not be the case at all. To your point, you can take people not opening your emails or watching your live videos or something right away. I've done a bunch of live videos where there's been no one watching, while I'm live. And you go through those moments where you're like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? No one cares. This is that. But the reality is after the lives end, then a bunch of people come back in and watch the replays, and then they get shared and more people watch, and it's this continuing, legacy of communication.
Right.
And it's something where, yes, you have to feel confident in your message and what you're getting out there. And of course, we don't want to blatantly disregard if you're putting an offer out there or something and every single person's coming back like, I hate this is not good, this doesn't help. Like,
Right.
okay, like you got to take a little feedback there. But
Oh, 100%. Well, and in that case too, like it's an opportunity to look at your tactics, right? If you
yes,
know that the things that you have, the product that you have works and is good for people, your tactics might just be the wrong thing.
right.
And even in that case, it's like don't go down the spiral of like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm an imposter, I'm in the wrong space. None of those things might be true. First, it's taking a look at your tactics, right? Maybe you need to package a different offer. Maybe the language that you were using, to your point earlier, is not hitting the audience that you're looking for. Maybe that audience is not, you're not saying something the way that they're trying to hear something. You might be saying, they might be trying to hear the sky is blue, and you might be saying the sunset is red. And that
Mm-hmm.
feels warm and fuzzy for you, but they're like, I'm not looking for a red sunset, I'm looking for a blue
Yeah.
sky. So you might just be putting the wrong, right? You might just be putting the wrong color on it. So,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I like
yeah,
your metaphor.
yeah. So there was a couple other things that I would love to share. So that was some of the like identity mindset, like how do you keep your mind in the right place, which is a big part of keeping your body calm and grounded. But there's also a couple things that I have found super helpful with in my own life and with my clients, and just some like physical, practical, super like the stuff that we've talked about so far is like you might need to get a coach. You might need to have somebody else look into your life and help you say like this is what I'm hearing and this is how you could work on your worthiness, right? But some really really practical things that you can like feet on the ground right now, you could go do it today. If you have another live later, you could totally do this today. If somebody watching has something, a conversation or a pitch coming up this afternoon, they could totally do this today, right? um, so one of the things that I am so passionate about is called power posing. Have you heard of power posing, Olivia?
I have, but go through and I'm going to do everything you're saying. I'm going to do it right
Okay,
now. So,
perfect. So, power posing, and I heard this off of a TED Talk. I can't remember off the top of my head what TED Talk it is, but I can totally send you a link that you can share with your folks.
yeah, that would be great.
Yes, actually, I'm going to make a note of that right now so I remember to do it. But yeah, so this information, I got it from a TED Talk about body language, and it's just fantastic. So basically, the concept of power posing is they have done studies about how to like calm your body and have more confidence.
Hmm.
And one of the things that they noticed scientifically was that, for instance, even athletes who are blind, who've been blind from birth, have never seen, when they run a race and they win, without ever having ever seen anyone do it, they throw their hands up in like this victory pose, basically.
Yes, yes.
So they've done studies about the way you hold your body and how it affects the hormones in your body, which affect your confidence. So anytime, I'm going to change my screen just a little bit so you can see a different angle. So anytime we are in more of like a submissive, kind of hunched over, for instance, looking at our phones, right?
Yes, yes.
We're in this more hunched over position. This raises our cortisol levels in our body, which is our stress hormone. Okay. And so it decreases our confidence. It makes us feel more submissive, less dominant. Versus if you, even if you're sitting down, if you stand up really tall and just bring your shoulders back and have a really open pose. Even if you want to stand up, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to back up a little. So even if you are standing in more of a, let's see, can we do this? Yeah.
Yes,
So
perfect.
even if I'm standing like this, right, talking on my phone, this is a more closed down,
Yeah.
submissive position versus chest out, 1 foot forward, weight on your front feet. These kind of positions make us feel more powerful, more in control. And when we are doing these bigger, more open, more dominant power posing positions, it raises our testosterone level, which makes us feel more relaxed and more confident.
Mhm.
So they actually did studies where they had, let's say, 8 people in an interview situation. And while they were in the waiting room, they had certain people power pose for 30 seconds to 2 minutes before they went into their interview. And they did not instruct the other 4 to power pose. So the other 4 were doing what we all do, right? On their phones before their interview, trying to combat their nerves. And without fail, and of course, the interviewers didn't know who had power posed and who had not power posed. And so the interviewers, without fail, hired the people that power posed over the people that did not power pose. So these are kind of the scientific studies that show us that power posing is actually extremely effective. So I I totally do that now. I'm like, I'm nervous. Okay, how do I start to calm my anxiety? All right, shoulders back, spine straight. Sometimes I'll like, do a
Yes,
pose that makes
yes,
me feel
yes.
amazing. What's my Taylor Swift pose? I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso. There's even an episode in Ted Lasso where the boss lady's like, before I go into a room, I make myself as big as I can. And she like does that, and that's her power pose. So these are the kinds of things that like you could go do this right now,
Mhm.
tomorrow, today, when you have your next thing. And it's just like ways that our physical body, helping our physical body kind of reconnect and ground, raise up our hormones that are like promoting that confidence, promoting that dominance versus that like, I don't know, maybe I should be here, maybe I shouldn't, submissive, right? So
Right.
power posing is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So you said you had heard of power posing before, though.
I have. I think I've actually seen that TED Talk.
Yes,
And it's
it's a great one.
brilliant. It does. It makes such a huge difference. And that's something that I actually really struggle with. Like I find myself, I hunch forward a lot. And like I'll even just be standing there at the kitchen counter, chopping dinner, whatever. And like I'll realize like I'm like so bent over forward. And then I stand up and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like 4 inches taller than I thought I was. Like
Yes.
it's awesome.
Well,
But
and yeah.
no, well, one of my, so when I was studying for my yoga certification, everything, one of the teachers was like, really focus on pulling that invisible string up from the top of your head and really
Yeah.
pull yourself up through that crown chakra and really rise and grow and pay attention to your spine. And so I've been doing that for years, and it does make such a huge difference in your confidence and how you feel about yourself, which, as we know from your very first point, then affects your communication with everyone else after that. So
100%. Right.
brilliant.
Yeah, and it's a great tool as well for anxiety because there's there's just the normal nerves, but then there's also like anxiety of like I have to prepare for 3 weeks to feel even remotely calm. And so these are some of the things that you can start putting in place to like create that pre-show or pre-conversation or pre-pitch ritual that start to help you, and even incorporating this into daily life can help you start to feel the difference too. Maybe your thing is that you power pose 3 times as soon as you wake up or as soon as you go to bed. Honestly, as soon as right before you go to bed, if you're getting more relaxed and more confident, you're going to sleep better than
Yeah.
if you're on your phone and having anxiety before you sleep and then your mind is like
Yeah.
so there's ways to incorporate it into daily life as well to start feeling those effects even before you get to the big show, so to speak.
It's perfect. And I love
Yeah.
how practical it is.
Hmm. The other thing that's super practical that um, it can sound like a discouraging thing, but I don't want it to be discouraging because there's so many opportunities to do this. One of the biggest things is like experience. Experience is so important. The more you do something, the more mistakes you make, the more you make it through something without dying, which is what our brains tell us is going to happen, right? You're going to die if you mess up. So the more experience you can get, the better. So even something as little as like I host an open mic night once a month in my community, And for a lot of my music students, I'm like, come to open mic night. It doesn't matter if you're 100% ready. Just you need to like come and you need to get your first time on the stage. Because once you get your first time on the stage, you're probably going to be nervous. You're probably not going to sing as perfectly as you want to. And that's okay because you're going to make it through and you're going to see that you survived it. And you're going to be able to look back and say, I would have done these things differently. And now you can plan for those things for next time. So if you're getting ready for public speaking, if you're getting ready for pitching, whatever it is, find an open mic night and just get up there and read a poem, right? Or some places have story jams. So get up there and tell a story. And like getting into some of these situations that are what I call safe places to fail can be really helpful because you can experience all the nerves, you can experience all the fear, and you can just jump off the diving board into the deep end. And then you'll see I survived it, and now you can look back on it and go, oh, I didn't like breathe enough when I was talking, and so I sounded breathless, right? Or I didn't power pose before that, and I was a wreck, right? So just getting experience, creating experiences for yourself before you have the big moments can be so helpful to like start to show your brain and your body nothing bad happens when I make mistakes. Nothing. And so I'm a huge proponent of getting experience. I remember when I was in college, I went to college for music, and my professors were like, yeah, you can rehearse as much as you want before a tour, but like, there is no replacement for experience. So, like, you go on a tour and you do 120 shows, you will be a completely different performer. That rehearsal alone won't give you.
Mhm.
So, yeah, finding places for experiences is great.
I love that suggestion about finding open mic nights and stuff everywhere and just going and practicing getting up and talking in front of people and doing something, especially now that we're kind of opening back up again at the moment after being stuck inside away from people for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, and if anyone ever wants to practice going live, like let me know. I will bring you live on my groups pages, whatever. We'll just talk. Okay. It's completely no pressure. And it's kind of funny you bring that point up because when my clients come to me and anytime they fail, they might come to me and say, that launch was horrible. I only had 3 people signed up. I wanted 100 people, only three. And I'll say like, oh, good. Congratulations. They're like, no, you're not listening to me, Olivia. It was a failure. I'm like, good. That's a good thing because it's that experience. Okay. So you only had 3 people sign up and you wanted 100. Is it the end of the world? No. Did you die? No. Is it okay? So take that. What's the worst thing that happened from it? You felt bad. Okay. Take that and let's go back to the drawing board and let's learn from what happened there. What are those next lessons, as you said? You know,
Yes.
what can you learn from that experience so that the next launch when they come back, they might have 10 people sign up, and we just keep going and growing from there
Yes.
until those nerves kind of they get more regulated. I don't want to say they ever completely go away because
Sure.
even I can suddenly get nervous at the drop of a hat for something, but
Right.
it becomes more of an excitement than a fear. You learn to embrace it
Right.
and take it as what it is. It's a learning experience and something
Exactly.
that only makes you bigger and better and stronger. So
Yeah, and even to put it another way, it's like your fears and your anxieties and your nerves might not ever completely go away, but you get a new toolbox of how to deal with them,
yes.
right? It might not get easier, but you get more resilient. You have new emotional mindset and skill set tools to fix the problems, so to speak. And so I think that's one of the encouraging things, like you were saying, failure activates success
Mm-hmm.
eventually, right? And my coach was talking to me about this, and I was, saying something to him about just like every failure feels so big, and like I feel like I have to get it right every single time, and I don't want to send out an email unless it's the right email. And I was kind of going down this whole path. And he's like, that's really interesting because I've just always viewed everything as a ginormous experiment. And every single thing that I do just gives me more information. And
Yeah.
I thought that was such a beautiful way of looking at it, especially as business owners and as we're trying to find our audience and promote with the right product and the right language and all of this. If we can view everything we're doing as an experiment that gives us more information, those failures will activate our success if we learn, right? Like you're saying, if we
Yeah.
grow and
Yeah.
learn through them. So, yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. All right. Any more practical tips?
I think that's the big one. I think that's the big stuff. Yeah. Do you have anything that you feel like is on your mind that you want me to touch on?
I mean, I think you pretty much ran the gamut. It's a wonderful starting point. I mean, going from the mindset and kind of that internal work that is so incredibly important
Yeah,
and can actually be kind of the hardest
for sure.
aspect of it. And then those very practical tips of things you can turn around and start to do like right now. Um, Power posing makes a huge difference. And I think everyone should, right now, unless you're driving, you should stand up and do a power pose because
100%.
um, no, I think this was perfect. Thank you so very much for jumping on. If anyone has any questions about anything, where can they reach you?
Sure, I'm all over social media. My handle is just at Jenny Baird Music.
Okay.
So it's JennyBairdMusic. I'm like, how do you spell music? And then just my website, jennybaird.com, is kind of where all of my info is. I do have a free masterclass coming up on March 24th called basically Find Your Voice, How to Find Your Voice. So we'll be diving into some of these concepts even a little bit deeper. It'll be kind of a live Zoom situation, so you'll be able to interact a little bit in a different way and ask some questions, get some practice doing some of these things. My origins are as a musical vocal coach, so we'll do some fun vocal things if you want to work on tone and pitch and volume and the way you communicate stylistically. So, yeah.
I love that. That sounds like so much fun. That actually sounds like a blast. I'm gonna have to sign up for that.
Awesome. Send it
I'll make
along.
sure all of the links are below this video also, so everyone can just access everything directly. But
Perfect.
all right. Thank you so much again, Jenny, for jumping on. I'm sure we'd
Having
love to
me.
have you back and talk more about this later on. So,
Sounds good.
all right, everyone, have a great rest of your day. We will talk with you soon.